Hi, my name is Brian McDonald. This is my senior final for the year of 2022, the fall semester at the University of Tampa. I am here to present my senior final project, of which is a point-and-click adventure game that I created in GameMaker Studio 2. All the sprites were created by me in a software known as Sprite, and this is my game, Cowboy Rex. Effectively, what you have throughout the game is the still tiles to illustrate the adventure going through that the player will experience. You have these little arrows up that'll be placed around the screen at moments to illustrate what the player can and can't do. So first, because this one has the hand, we have this as proceed. We have these here for panels that will illustrate everything the player needs to see before transitioning to the next screen, or in a handful of moments where, like a comic book, where you'll have multiple panels illustrating how the character is transitioning from one screen to another. So we're going to go ahead and click to get started. With the arrows here with our first puzzle, whenever we have these puzzles like this where you have this or that options, I tried to illustrate on the arrows themselves the options the player can take. So for here, we walk into a room illuminated by this here torch. Now, we can either pick this arrow here that is us taking the torch, or we can head off to the side and wander into the darkness. So for now, I'm going to wander into the darkness without grabbing the torch. And because of that, our guy walks into the room and unfortunately has stumbled over some spikes that impale him and he dies. When players reach these end screens, which there are a handful of these for win-lose scenarios, the player will need to click these end tiles here. Clicking these will just bring us right back to the start and we can start fresh. We don't necessarily need to worry about losing progress because we'll have plenty of opportunities to continuously replay, so we don't have to worry about having so many items in a run that will be detrimentally punished if we mess up. So we're going to go back to this room. Now instead of wandering into the darkness, we're going to take the torch. And as we see here, our protagonist here is holding the torch, illuminating the room, and can see the trap of spikes set before him. We're going to click the next proceed arrow, and we've got him walking into the next room. Click the next proceed arrow, and we're given our second puzzle, or second choice rather. And this is where this game can get into the meat and potatoes, let's call it, where we have branching paths that can take our character on completely different adventures. We can either swing across the vines here to get to the other side and go across this waterfall, or we can head down below and see what awaits us down there. So the minor spoilers, of course, this is the opening into the bulk of the game. You have multiple paths you can take. You can still get all of the endings in the game up to a certain point, provided, a player messes up and loses. So for now, we're going to swing across, and as we see here, comic book panel, our guy was holding the torch still from the previous room. He lights the vines on the side that then let go of the main branch that swings over towards him. He grabs on and swings across, and lets go, falling into the waterfall, when unfortunately, his foot slips in the water, so he's caught off guard by this. Which brings us into the next room. We can either try jumping across and seeing what's on the other side, or let the water take us, as the previous room also encouraged us to go down. I'm going to go down for a second, and naturally our adventurer here unfortunately bonks his head into the side of the wall, and, well, he didn't make it. So we're going to start over again, go back to the beginning of the game, choose the torch, see the trap, walk through. This time we're going to fall down and see what awaits us below, since ahead if we do that it doesn't work out. So let's see what happens down here. Our adventurer falls down, we see him here falling into the water, and below we end up in this first person perspective of this underwater cavern that we can explore at our leisure. We can either take the left or the right. For this portion in particular, I made sure Okay, so for this portion here, I have the underwater section, of course. I didn't want to lock players out to any one particular path up to a certain extent, so say we take the right here. This will bring us to this room where we can either go ahead and see the second ending of the game as opposed to the first default ending a player could run to, We have another room off to the side here, but because this is easily where you can win or lose, get the prize in the game, or see what's in the next room and risk some form of reward that we don't know of, or we can head back. I included the back button just because once a player typically gets to the screen, they can get to the silver prize in the previous screen that we just saw, but also I wanted to make sure the path can converge. So if we go here, we have where the branching paths will converge if a player takes this arrow on the left here. Clicking this will then display us this series of panels. Our character finds a stream of water that thrusts him into the next section, flying up to the surface, or swimming up to the surface rather. Sees the table before us, which brings us to this decision of gold or silver. Now to show where the path can converge there, we're going to hit silver for now and get the basic ending of the game. This would be ideally if a player's just going straight through, not being super adventurous. But when you get to these screens, similarly to the death screens, what we gotta do is hit this little star square down here, and we're back at the start. We're gonna take the torch, next room, go down, go across the vines, get to this water slide here, and now we jump across, and voila, we're back here. When we pick the gold here this time, however, we get a series of panels. Our character realizes something's magical about it, and that transitions us into our next room. In which case, we just have a simple puzzle with a this or that. It's a 50-50 coin toss. You know, you click the arrow, and we get which switch do we want to try pulling. One that looks very worn, or one that doesn't look used at all. We're going to look the one that looks very worn, and sure enough, the lever is pulled, the ball spike chain above us falls down, and we're dead. We're going to keep going a bit, get to the torch, go through. For fun, I feel like showing off the second ending of the game, where we go across here. We go ahead, we just get the treasure, we win. Next screen, I do want to show off what's down that other path for the sake of fun. Go down the water, take the right, and then we take another right, and oh no, we found a shark. We have been eaten. I figured the most fun thing to do with a lot of these games is the different paths you can take. While on one hand, you know, it's always everyone wants to win, but it's kind of fun and a little bit relaxing to just draw various screens illustrating what can happen if a player messes up. As much as you want to see the character succeed and everything, sometimes it's just fun to see what other things you can experiment with, even if they're not optimal results. So we go back, take the torch, go through, go across, water slide, take the gold, transition to the next room, look at the switches, use the one that doesn't look worn out at all. The bridge in front of us collapses and we can walk across. Then to the next room, we've got just a very simple puzzle. At this point, I considered this whole portion, once the player picks the gold in an earlier screen, opening the true path of the game, because how some video games like to have the fake endings and the good endings and so on and so forth. I decided to do just a simple guessing game. At this point, people have already achieved getting this far in. I didn't want to give them a death screen at the last second, so it's just a simple balancing game. Do we want the pendulum here in the middle to lean to the left or right? I'm going to hit the blue. Sure enough, the pedestal above us, the little pyramid, has treasure inside. Falls out. It's a diamond. Our guy's so happy he's crying. On to the next screen, we see what he does, and voila, he's happy with all the money he earned from it. From this point, you have beaten the game.